Another question that comes up quite a bit is, um, excuse me, is where do I begin redefining myself? When we have a change and transition, perhaps a loss, perhaps a loss that even would be favorable. Even lottery winners have some type of psychological challenges, even though it's something that they really wanted. Part of that has to do, part of the change and transition with that is us figuring out who we are in this new environment. Now, it might be you're not with someone anymore, which I've gone through. It's tough. It might be that you don't have this job title anymore. It might be that you have certain friends or at least close colleagues that you made within this work environment, excuse me, and you're not going to see them anymore. It's not on a regular basis. That's hard. Even as an independent like myself, I've gone in and consulted at places, particularly in recent years and all that. And the consultation or the business is done, and then that's it. So even that, even if you're independent, that becomes part of the transition. Where do I begin redefining myself? I think is really important because that becomes part of our identity. Even with shout out to people that I love that have gone through Alcoholics Anonymous or NA, which would be the narcotics version of it, or SA, I think it's called. Might not be SA because that means something else. But as far as with sexual addiction, those folks that I care about that have gone through addictions, one of the things that's come up quite a bit is that ends up being part of breaking the addiction is actually being thoughtful about your social circle. Because if you're an addict and your social circle is at the bar, it's not just a matter of you withdrawing from alcohol or whatever you're addicted to. It also is the loss of the social network. So that's why there's a redefinition that happens. Shout out to Black Star, but there ends up being a redefinition that ends up happening when you are transitioning into something else. That's why it's so important to talk about how you're redefining yourself. One of the ways that I've found that's easiest to redefine yourself, at least for me, when I've gone through, you can look at my LinkedIn page. I've had a lot of career redefinitions. One of the things that helps is defining what you aren't. What are you not about? I tend to be a very direct person, particularly as I get older, very direct. And so if someone asks my opinion about something, 99.9% of the time, I'm going to give them the truth. Be like, yeah, this is what it is. And I'll do it as kind as possible, but they're gonna know where I stand. That's how I'm trying to express it. People tend to know where I stand. There's not a lot of, guessing. That's something that I kind of stand on. So there are other approaches, and there's a lot of people that I care about that don't have that approach. They might be like, well, I'm not sure where I stand, or I don't want to commit to standing on this because what if I change my mind later? And so they tend to be more cards to the chest. It's fine. Some people I love, some people I respect, they handle it differently. For me, that's kind of like what you see is what you get for the most part, right? Unless there's some definitive reason as to why not. So um, me being coy as far as how I feel about something, that's not that's not me. Any of y'all who have watched the show, particularly if you know me personally, you know that's not me. And so that's part of me defining who I am is understanding what I'm not. That's a really important part of the process. The second thing, if you're going to be redefining yourself or understanding the layers of yourself after you've had some type of loss or change, is observing who is in your circle. So if you have people in your circle who represent certain ideas or certain values, like if y'all tend to be very kind, like you're volunteering at soup kitchens, or you take a certain amount of your money and you pay tithes if you're involved with your church, synagogue, temple, what have you, or you take some of that and donate it to nonprofits. I tend to donate to nonprofits, particularly ones that I'm really supportive of. Like I was talking about with the Entertainment Community Fund and so forth at the top of the show. That those are certain values or characteristics. Those things are independent from whatever job you have. Those sometimes are independent of whatever environment you're in. And it could be something really, really simple. For instance, I'm really into super hot foods. The rest of my family is not. So I was the odd one out, throwing extra jalapenos and extra hot sauce on everything when I was growing up. Then I met my former partner, also into really spicy stuff. We clicked, had a bunch of kids, got two of them, and now my kids eat all this spicy food. That's based on the circle that I created, but it's not based on the environment I was raised in. That's based on me. I'm really into spicy foods, but my parents and other folks that raised me aren't. So that doesn't mean that it's not true. It just means that sometimes you end up being this anomaly. And so you can't just basically, you're going to look at your circle and find out what values you have in common and what standards, what culture you have. But don't let that limit you as far as what you could be. Because you might have something a little extra in there, like my productivity for spice, that doesn't quite match your environment. That's equally important. And then when you're redefining or rediscovering these parts of yourself, there might be a part of you that's dormant that say, oh yeah, none of my family likes spice, but I really like spice. And that becomes what you end up building that next chapter on, such as me being with my former partner and having a bunch of kids who love spice. Now we're just a spicy family, but that's not based on the family that I was raised on. It's important to define those things. Again, as I talked about at the top of the episode, if you have a particular job title, particularly if you're not used to being independent, you get a certain job title, it's easy to think, oh, this is my identity. I went through that with journalism, where it's like I have 2 degrees in journalism, master's in magazine publishing. I am a journalist, capital J. And then that edge started to soften to a lowercase j. And then by the time I had my first kid, it was like, oh, actually, maybe there's no J there at all. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's journalism or whatever. They just made up a new term. But you know what I'm saying? Then suddenly the whole thing shifts. Being comfortable with that process, that's part of the journey. There's nothing wrong with that. And so the environment that you're in, maybe it doesn't support all these parts of you. But once you leave that environment or that environment goes away, then it's okay to reclaim those parts that you might have forgotten about. No guilt or shame about it. Just it's a grand opportunity. So as much pain or challenges you might be having with your transition, particularly career-wise, it's also a grand opportunity for you to go ahead and get those parts of yourself, not new parts of yourself, but more parts of yourself that for whatever reason were in the shadows. Shout out to Carl Jung. You're able to pull them out into the light and be like, oh yeah, that's another part of me that I forgot about. If we're going to talk about being your true self and redefining yourself, got to talk about Noah for Merchant. Shout out to Noah for hope you're doing fantastic. The power of onlyness. Make your wild ideas mighty enough to dent the world. I'm talking slowly because I'm reading backwards. Again, I know what the subtitle is, but I just want to read out the front. Fantastic book. I got like 3 copies of it. This was signed, sealed, all that good stuff. So shout out to Nilifer. She has some great passages in here as far as being yourself. And it's worth looking up her TED Talks. I saw her on stage at TED. That's actually when we first met several years ago. Had a fantastic talk about the power of walking. Fantastic talk. Worth looking up. I think it's one of the 5%, top 5% watched TED Talks of all time. So she was killing it on stage. I'm so proud of her work. But this one in particular is fantastic. So many good analogies in here and real stories. Not even analogies, real stories. My favorite story is a guy in Philly. I wish I could remember his name. There was a guy in Philly who was trying to build a network. I think he was also working on like an incubator as in startups and getting people together, kind of like some of the work that I do, but I do it more ad hoc. But literally having a brick and mortar place where people can get together, talk about their startup ideas, even get investment, but basically a gathering place for people who are doing startups. And he was having a hard time getting people together. And I think he had a hard time finding the right people as far as the right culture and things of that nature. And then one day he said, wait, I'm not even dressed how I normally dress. And so it became I think it might have been the trucker hat, which is really popular like 15 years ago. Look up some old videos like from Pharrell Williams and Neptune and Nerds, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Anyway, having the trucker hat on, and he had a bunch of tattoos on his arm. So he wore like a regular shirt, like a t-shirt, but the tattoos were showing where he didn't have it showing. There's a level of conservatism when it comes to Silicon Valley and even the other places that are involved in the tech scene, particularly at that time. At that time, when around the time shortly before this book came out, I was living in Silicon Valley. So I know exactly what she was talking about with the story. And I think he wore like Van shoes. So very much almost like a skater culture, for lack of a better term, if you want a shorthand for it. And suddenly he started finding people that didn't exactly look like him, but were of a similar idea and culture. The point is that you can't attract the people that are going to become your tribe if you're not looking like and acting like the culture that you want to represent. Like for instance, I have a nice little blazer on. I have my shirt, even though it's getting a little bit older. But my Bring Your Worst shirt is actually available at a DamonBrown.net. And I'm just in my office, and if it wasn't a school day, then you would hear my kids playing over there. That's the vibe. When you coach with me, it's the same stuff. When you read one of my books, like the sorry, being octopus hands over here. When you read like the complete Bring Your Worth collection, shout out to y'all that came to the Entertainment Community Fund keynote. I was in the same place, different shirt, different blazer, but same place, because this fits the culture of the people like you that I coach. This TV show, there's no fancy studio, and it's not sponsored by ABC. No shots at ABC. It's just that's me. That's the type of people and the type of vibe that I want to have. That's just one little chapter in this. I don't even think it's a full chapter. I think the story I just gave you is like 3 pages. This one's like 300 pages long. Highly recommend it. It did really well as far as book sales for a reason. Highly recommend it. Shout out to Nilifer. If you're going to talk about how you're going to show up based on who you are, we got to talk about your creative power strategy. This part of a series that I've been doing on Bring Your TV. It started with Michael Jackson, Prince, and Jay-Z. You actually will see the link to that below as well. And then I followed it up about a year ago with Drake, Kendrick Lamar, and J. Cole. They represented for the 80s going into the 90s, and then for these guys with the recent time in the early aughts, they represented the pinnacle of that particular music genre they were into. And they took three different approaches to mastering that particular music industry at the time. And so I'm not even going to get into the approaches because again, I did a whole video about it. I did a live show on it, all that stuff. But this is a great place to start and talking about how you want to essentially master the game. And you could do it do the traditional route, but there's risk to that. You can do the unorthodox route where you learn from the industry and then you leave, or you can do the totally independent route where you're outside of the industry and then you're working with industry a little bit, but you're able to create your own path. They all have risks to it, but definitely worth checking out. It's one of my favorite videos that I've done that I did in 2024. And it's a great discussion, I believe, right underneath as well, where there's quite a few comments where we're talking a little bit deeper about it. Be sure and check out the video if you haven't already. So what about you? How are you defining who you are and what you bring to the table based on new factors in your life, particularly career-wise? What parts of you were you not able to show or still aren't able to show within your work environment that maybe you can show now, whether it's independent, which we'll talk about in a minute, or it's something within a new work environment that you're able to do. Let us know in the comments, even if you're watching the replay or the clips. Love to hear your take. Excuse me. I'm entrepreneur coach Damon Brown. You can reach me at damonbrown.net for if you want to coach with me, if you want the t-shirts and the mugs, what have you. Even if you want to get my newest book, The Complete Bring Your Worth Collection, you can get it directly from me or at your favorite retailer. It's Bring Your Worth TV, live Wednesdays at 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. You can subscribe for free.